Hey, do you want to come over and make a pot of tea, bring your favorite crystals? We could talk about our birth charts, spirits, the latest house spells we've been doing. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm that witch next door. Hello, neighbor. Welcome back to another episode at That Witch Podcast with me, Danny, that witch next door. I am absolutely giddy to bring you our guest today and introduce everyone in the neighborhood to the wonderful Elle Embers. Before we dive right in, this is such a special connection because if you've been in my world for a while, then you definitely have heard me mention or have heard my episodes with Daniel, the past life regressionist, who is just number one of my favorite people. And number two, always bringing the best people into my world, into my universe. And that is exactly how ultimately Elle and I connected. It was pretty easy though. Once we connected, we were very into what each other was doing anyway. So it was a pretty easy little setup here. But that I always have to give a shout out to Daniel, to my guy, to my personal past life regressionist. But Elle, you yourself also do past life regression and so much for your clients. I can't wait to get into it. So please, if you would say hello to everybody.
Yeah, hey, thanks so much for having me. It's lovely to meet the neighbors, and I am very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so excited too. Elle, you have a podcast as well. How long have you been podcasting, by the way?
Yeah, about 2 years, 2022.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You can go ahead and plug that now as well, by the way.
It is Cosmic Curiosities. And the first 2 seasons were all about kind of diving into different modalities and kind of exploring our curiosities around different, I guess, holistic practices and modalities out there and getting to kind of journey through self-discovery. But season 3 has been all about coming into my own and discussing kind of the insights, the cosmic insights that I've gained along my journey. So it's a bit more personal, but I'm still loving it. It's great.
I love that. My show has done something really similar, and I've always put, I'm sure, I know that you do the same, and most of us do. I always put my own flair in there and everything, but my last season or two has gotten really from the heart, from the gut kind of a thing. Yeah, it's something in the collective right now, for sure, for sure. So first, Elle, we have a little tradition around here to introduce all of our guests. Will you please let us know what your big 3 are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I am an Aries sun, a Capricorn moon, and a Scorpio rising. And I am a soul therapist and quantum healer. So to kind of, I guess, soul therapist is kind of the term that covers a lot of different things. But I do past life regression, timeline exploration. I help people meet their spirit team through cosmic channeling and help people learn to harness their unique types of energy through energy coaching. And yeah, there's just a whole lot that kind of goes into that. Theta healing, everything else. So yeah, it's kind of like the term that I'm just like, this covers everything.
There's so much of your astrology already in that I can see. That's really, really cool. And many people already know this around here. I have a very personal soft spot for Capricorn moon. That's one of my favorite placements ever.
Ooh.
Yes, I love Cap moon. Yes. So there's so much that I already want to dive into specifically about the services that you offer. But before I do, I would love to know your journey into this work. It's one of my favorite things to learn about every single guest we have on the show, because everyone has their own spiritual edge somehow. And some of us were totally born into this entire world community the industry even. And some of us are totally DIY from scratch, this and that, and came into it on totally different circumstances. So what brought you into spirituality and ultimately as your profession?
Yeah, so I guess I was kind of born into it. I grew up with psychic and mediumship abilities from the age of 4, and I didn't really understand it, and I didn't really realize I was different until my parents were kind of like, maybe don't tell people about their dead grandma. That might be a little bit upsetting. And I was like, oh shit, all right. So yeah, I kind of grew up feeling a bit ashamed about who I was and what I could do. And I kind of went through the stage of like trying to repress my abilities and try to be normal, quote unquote, normal. And I experienced like intense deja vu. So like people that I would meet, places I would go, I always just had this like weird connection. Like I'm like, oh, I know where things are, but I've never been to this place before. Or I know I've met this person before and I feel like we've had this conversation before. Things like that. And I just kind of felt like I was born in the wrong time, in the wrong place, and just didn't really feel like I, fit this character or this role. So I kind of spent a lot of my life feeling like I just auditioned for the wrong, like I just showed up at audition one day at the school play and they were like, hey, this is your life. And I was like, what the fuck? No one gave me any lines for this. I was not prepared. So yeah, I ended up kind of trying to repress things out for a long time until stepping into my early 20s and really kind of going, okay, what am I doing with my life? I experienced loss. I lost people that were really close to me. And it was kind of like, wow, okay, what does my life mean? Like, I don't even know who I am and what I'm doing. So maybe I should really kind of venture into that. And that led me to connecting to my spirit team, my spirit guides. That led me to channeling. That led me to Daniel, doing past life regression and discovering that there were pieces of myself that were tethered to other timelines. And that's why I never felt like I was whole in this life. So once I kind of went through that journey to reclaim those pieces, it was like, shit, all right, this is what it feels like to be alive. All right, let's go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your professional journey like before you started your own business? And what is it like now as a spiritual business owner? Because there's really nothing like it. There's like all entrepreneurs we're all in our own club in the first place. And then the spiritual aspect, I'm sorry, not sorry, it adds a spin to it. I'm sure it's the same for like art or music. You know what I mean? It's just like there's just something about your niche that other people don't get unless that's also their niche.
Yeah. It's it's rough. Honestly, my career before stepping into like who I am and what I can do and all that sort of thing was kind of I was really mainstream. I was trying to, make it in the health industry. I was a nurse. I became a hairdresser and then a beauty therapist. In all different ways, still trying to like help people. In health wise, I was, trying to help people, support them. In the beauty elements, I was trying to help people feel confident about themselves. And when I stepped into being who I am and my abilities and going, okay, kind of stepping into my own and transforming my own life, other people started to notice and they were like, what are you doing? Like, what's changed? How do I get to where you're at? And so I started helping, friends and family. And then it just started taking up too much of my time. And I was like, okay, I kind of need to make a choice here. Do I turn this into a business, or do I like send people on their way and hope for the best? And yeah, I decided to make this a business, go into it. And I did actually team up with a really close friend of mine who has a holistic beauty and wellness clinic that I operate out of in Brisbane, Australia. So I do my in-person sessions there, and we've created this amazing space to care for your soul, your mind, body, and soul holistically. So it's been an amazing experience stepping into that.
Tell us a little bit about that space and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so because I was a beauty therapist beforehand, my best friend is also a beauty therapist, and she became a Reiki master. And when she learnt Reiki, she could understand what I was doing and what I was all about. And it kind of was the gateway for her to, I guess, venture into past lives and spirit guides and, reprogramming her limiting beliefs with theta and Reiki and the rest of it. So she was like, hey, she already had her own business. And she's like, hey, I want to expand, and I want to incorporate more soul treatments into my space. Is there any way you'd consider doing it with me? And I was like, hell yeah. Okay. Like, what do you want to do? So we ended up incorporating these beautiful treatments that incorporate Reiki and, facials and massage and channeling and really a lot of just energy healing work with the physical. So you're really allowing yourself to embody this energy and relax into it rather than just feel like you're going somewhere for a reading or a healing. It's kind of like a multi-sensory experience.
That sounds incredible. It sounds absolutely amazing. It really, it's so fascinating to me, the bridge and the connection between our body and our energy field. And whether it's like spa treatments, like massage and facial and manicure and pedicure, and ultimately these things are self-care, and that's why it feels so incredibly nourishing. And then with what you're doing, you're adding that layer of intention with energy, recognizing the energy field that is there and is attached to the body. And you can tap into such a more profound experience that way. Like you said, like it takes going and getting a massage for an hour, which always goes by too fast anyways. Always by the end, you're like, that was amazing. And I want more. And I feel like with the types of facilities and services like what you guys are doing and offering, it adds this layer that you do leave those services filled in a completely different way from such a deeper depth, honestly. You're
100%.
exactly right. And it on the flip side is so much bigger than just going and getting a reading, which can be huge and profound and powerful, of course. When you add in that physical aspect of the body and you make that entire spiritual experience tangible and here and real in the 3D world, I think that does something to us as humans.
Totally. And that's what we've seen, in clinic. People come in for, a Reiki session, and it's just not quite the same. They come in for a facial and it's just not quite the same. But you incorporate the two together and it's a whole different experience. And, even my clients that come there for soul therapy treatments and do past life regression or relax and release rituals, which incorporate different timeline explorations and embodying different energy through different timelines and reprogramming their limiting beliefs with the theta healing. Like, they come and do that, and then they have a channeling or whatever the situation is. But people that want to connect to their spirit team and want to learn to channel themselves and things like that, the first thing I say to them is, what does your self-care look like? Because the more that you are taking care of yourself, the more your spirit team feels inclined to make themselves known. Because if you are connecting to your spirit team, your spirit guides, what your guardian angels, whatever you resonate to call them, if you're connecting with them and relying on them to take care of you, to lean on them to do things for you, you're missing out on your human experience, and they will step back. So much of what I've learned is so incorporated into self-care and building those foundations that the spiritual can build off. But it's making it, I guess, like you said, more tangible to people that are living in the 3D world, because that's what we are. We are human. And we have to remember that we are here to live that human experience. So there has to be an element that takes care of our physical and our mental selves and our emotional selves as well before the spiritual can come online.
You're totally speaking my language. We do very grounded spirituality around here. This is just very right up my alley of morals and ethics when it comes to spirituality, because even aspiring for like 5D or 6D ascension, there is a difference between soul healing and soul evolution and totally bypassing your human experience, which clearly you are. You can't change that. You chose it. Your soul that you're ascending to 5D chose to embody a conscious, your consciousness chose to embody a physical shell here. And something that I have come to believe very, very strongly in my own like radical self-care and healing journey I've been on the last 2.5 years is the body itself is the bridge and is the connection between the spiritual and the physical realm. And there's a reason I completely agree with what you're talking about. The necessity for self-care to access your full potential spiritual experience as a whole, quite honestly, because this has to come first. Again, there's a reason your consciousness chose this life, this timeline, this universe, in this manner, no matter how much we might not like it here sometimes, or have a tough time with that experience. So my question for you, this is a perfect segue into this anyway. So my question for you is, tell us first a little bit about these services you offer your clients, especially what you were mentioning, soul therapy, these quantum healing services, and how past life regression and everything plays a role into what you do.
Yeah. So, I mean, with past life regression, it's one of my main core foundations. So much of what I do with past lives incorporates so much more than just past lives. It's really funny that I've had clients, especially recently, that have been able to embody the energies from their past lives, from periods of time where they have, for example, been a warrior princess and been able to embody this confidence and this strength and bring that into her present timeline so that she can go and do what she wants to achieve in this lifetime. So it's not so much just about discovering the past and healing things or beliefs or patterns that you've brought with you, we definitely do that. But there's so much more to experience there about bringing this energy into the present moment. And that is where we have the most power, because no matter where we are, if we are thinking about the past, like there's no amount of regret that's going to change what's already happened. And there's no amount of anxiety that can help you plan for the future. The point in time where you have the most control is right now, the present moment. So the more that we can embody the energies that you want to embody, that you've experienced in past lives and you know you can do it, you bringing that to the present moment, it's just a whole different level. I've had clients that have had trouble falling pregnant and have had IVF, and there's no medical reason for them not to be able to fall pregnant, but they've had some sort of trauma from a past life, whether it's childbirth related, losing a child, or even losing a husband and not being able to, survive in that time period on their own. And, we've come through release processes through past lives, and all of these women now, I've had 3 so far, all now have fallen pregnant and have children, all within weeks or months of their regression. And to me, that is just incredibly powerful work that allows them to transform their present timeline because of the work they've done in the past. Now, on top of that, I've also had clients be able to access energy from different timelines that aren't necessarily from the past, but could be an alternative timeline or potential future timelines, and see where they've gone from that and pull that energy and pull that wisdom and pull that knowledge into their present timeline so that they can really go and make the most of this experience. So it's really just blown my mind without, other words. But it's just incredible, the transformations that I see on a daily basis, and things that I think, sometimes are really just pointed out to me because I'm like, oh, this is just another day in the office. But for this person, their life isn't the same before or after this moment. And to me, that's why I do what I do. But that's also what pushed me to expand and dive deeper than just past lives, with timeline exploration and traveling to the future and traveling to the past and traveling to alternative timelines and rewriting them and actually taking away triggers that you have in this time period or this life, but still keeping the wisdom and the knowledge from them, but not being emotionally attached to them anymore. And we do that through theta healing as well, to reprogram those limiting beliefs that you've carried forward and kind of reprogram your computer system. So if you think about like the way computers used to run Windows 98 software, and you're like, this is a bit outdated. Let's do an upgrade. That's kind of what this is. It's kind of upgrading the software in your body, in your mind, and installing new neural pathways to help you better align with what you're trying to achieve in this life. And yeah, that's what we kind of stepped into from past life regression to the relax and release ritual. With Reiki as well, we do throw Reiki in there to help you embody the energy from different timelines. But yeah, and then also channeling as well. I always forget about, sorry, he's going to hate me. I always forget about the channeling. So because I grew up with the psychic and mediumship abilities and connecting to my spirit team, I was able to connect to my guides. And my team of spirit guides, from my understanding and what I've learned from them, is that we all have a set number of people on our team. And these are people that we may have shared past lives with previously, and they've done however many cycles of human lifetimes, and then they have a choice. They can start new cycles, or they can support other people in their cycles. And the ones that come through as spirit team members are the ones that have decided to help people throughout their many lifetimes, people that they've loved and connected to, supporting them on their journey. So the reason I call them a spirit team and not guides is because they don't feel like they guide us. They feel like they support us and they grow with us. So the more that we grow in our spiritual and human evolution, the more knowledge and information they gain as well and can better support you on your journey. But everyone has a team captain, which is what we call your primary. And that is what Sari is for me. So when I channel Sari, I have a very embarrassing Scottish accent. And she is able to help people connect with their team, which most people are already connected. They just don't have the awareness of it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes just knowing that they're there and knowing a name that they can communicate with helps bridge that gap for them, that they can start building a better relationship with their team. So we access that. We access different energy healings, DNA healings to help people realign with what their best and highest good is. So yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. Oh, and the energy coaching. so much.
I have a billion questions. This is awesome. Okay. The first one that I want to ask is, okay, because they're not really connected. So I'll have to ask one and then the other. Okay. My first question, yes, I've decided, is piggybacking really quickly, because this question just lightninged me. And I think that I know many a neighbor around here that would really appreciate if I asked this question. Especially since this is something that you help people do and you're very, very connected with your spirit team. One of the most common questions that I get from folks in my community that I answer very frequently, but I love getting the unique answer and feedback from as many different people as I can is, how can I connect with my spirit team? Like, what are those first steps? So my question for you is, what are those initial tips that you would give someone that feels like, I know, because I remember feeling this way. I remember being like, for the first time, I like know that they're there and I have no idea how to go about doing anything about that or strengthening it or connecting with it or whatever. So what would your tips be for someone in that position? Because I find that each and every one of us has our own unique journey to our spirit team, which is funny because I use the same terminology as well. Spirit team is by far my most frequently used term for it because I completely agree with what you said. And since each of us has such a different way of meeting them, greeting them, fostering that connection with them, you never know what tips make that spark for somebody else. So what would your tips be for somebody in that position?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is like, we are so personal and so individual, and our team members are as well. So your team members are going to speak and communicate to you in different ways. Not one of them is going to have the same communication method as the other. So it depends on what is most comfortable for them, but also what you're most receptive to. Something I tell everyone that is just a blanket, like trying to connect, is, how are you respecting yourself? How are you self-caring? How are you treating yourself? Because the more that you connect with yourself, again, the more you invite them to be more active in your life. So a big tip that I normally give is, if you think about yourself as having 4 categories, so your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your energetics. If you start with the physical, because that's the tangible 3D, every day we see that sort of thing, that's always the best place to start. So when I talk about connecting with your physical, It's how are you treating your body? And I'm not just talking about like diet and exercise and like, putting moisturizer on and getting a facial. I'm talking about how do you feel about your body and how are you using your senses? So the more that we connect to our senses, our sight, our sound, our smell, our taste, our sense of touch, the more our body responds, the more we have an awareness of those symptoms and those triggers to what's going on around us. And something that I always give my energy coaching clients is a little exercise that really isn't hard and you can add it into your everyday because, I hope everyone showers every day, right? So if you're in the shower, when you wash yourself, instead of just being like, yeah, washing myself, thinking about what I'm going to cook for dinner, thinking about what I got to do today, etc., take that time to really show appreciation for your body. And when I say that, I mean what it does for you, not what it looks like. So if you're washing every part of your body, say you're washing your legs, instead of just like going, yeah, wash, take the time to really wash your legs and say to yourself, say to your body, I am so thankful for my legs because they get me from point A to point B. I am so thankful for my arms because they allow me to hold those people that I love and carry things, etc., etc. Even the parts of ourselves that, we don't necessarily love as women. My stomach, I love my stomach because it was able to grow and give birth to 3 beautiful children. And if I don't have children, it allows me to digest and absorb the nutrients that I need to function every day. It is something that will feel incredibly embarrassing. And I say that with all the love, but you can be in a shower by yourself telling your body how much you appreciate what it does for you, and you will feel like you are on a stage in front of 10,000 people. But it is just overcoming that uncomfortability, because when your body feels appreciated, your body can trust you and you can trust it, and you can start to work together instead of abusing something that is trying to take care of you and it going, well, fuck you, I don't want to do the thing. My knee's going to hurt today and I'm going to blow out because you give no shits about me. When you build that relationship with your physical body and start treating it like it's something external, because we always care about other people more than ourselves. So when we think about it like that, it tends to shift. And not a word of a lie, when I started doing this exercise, I lost about, I don't know how much this is in pounds, but I lost 20 kilograms in like a month, because this weight just like dropped off me, because my body was like, oh my God, she loves me. Okay, she appreciates what we do for her. Let's work with her instead of working against her. And people were coming up to me and asking me if I'd had surgery. And I was like, nah, I just started like loving myself. So this is a really simple exercise that doesn't take you any more time during the day, but it's something that has such a huge, huge benefit that you don't even realize. And when you connect with that physical self, that physical body, that's when you can connect to the next part of yourself, the mental and the emotional. And then that spiritual door just kind of like swings open and you're like, oh, this is life now. This is communicating with my spirit team, and they feel like I can take on their advice and I can pick up their signs and their messages, because I'm connected to my body and my senses. So yeah.
I love this tip, because so much of fostering that strong, like, because that's what most people, and again, what I was yearning for at that time, most of us are yearning for that. Like, you hear people talk about their spirit team and you're like, I long for that. Oh, spiritual conversation that happens essentially. And that it's ultimately trusting the signs, the intuitive nudges, whatever it is. And ultimately, the best way to access that is through trusting your physical surroundings, right? And you cannot really open the door to that unless you start with your own physical body first, because it is your door to the physical realm. Your body is the door to your physical environment. And so this is why no matter what you do, if you are disconnected or blocked completely or in certain places from your body, that will reflect into your environment, and you'll feel this inner disconnect all the time, and that is going to therefore contribute to your connection with the spiritual realm as well. And there's going to be that disconnect there. I love this because, again, it highlights what we were talking about. And again, such a deep belief of mine, why the body is so important and part of spiritual work, because it's constantly communicating with you. And if you're ignoring that, what else could you potentially also be ignoring? Your spirit team probably likely is always technically communicating with you. And it's a matter of even being aware of it or being able to perceive it. And if you are shut off to the subtle cues of your own body, you're definitely going to be shut off to the even more subtle or nuanced cues that our spirit guides send us. Because seeing animals is a really good example. There's seeing animals, then there's seeing animals and being like, oh, I appreciate nature. And then there's seeing an animal and being like, I'm seeing this for a reason. This means something.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things I'm sure that you get in your work a lot, I hear a lot, is people having the difficulty trusting. When do I know it's my intuition and like it's real? And when do I not? And again, I would say your body is the doorway to your intuition. Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add to that is, like, when people ask me, like, how do I trust my intuition? It's gaining those receipts, right? It's learning to accept proof when it comes to you. And the way that you become more accepting of it is having that connection to your physical body, having your connection to your senses, because your intuition is a sense. So the more that you are having an awareness and connection to your sight, your hearing, your sense of smell, your sense of taste, your sense of touch, the more your intuition is going to activate. That is your sixth sense, right? So the more that you are connecting to your physical, the more you can trust your intuition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is, again, I love when these natural little segues happen. I'm like, this is the perfect lead into my next question anyways. So speaking of trusting your intuition, this is a huge, huge factor in being a spiritual entrepreneur. We're humans and we're going to experience self-doubt. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's this perfect, to anybody out there. I'm not saying it's perfect. I just trust myself all the time and I never go back to doubt it. Yeah, no.
I wish.
But this crossing of a threshold, if you will, does happen where you're like, I can do this for other people now. Like I really could. I would love to know, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced becoming a spiritual entrepreneur, that you do face, that you've had to overcome?
I think the biggest one is with the channeling, because, when Sari does come through, obviously she has an accent, she sounds different to me, but also, like, when that started coming online, I had to navigate myself, whether I was just fucking insane. Because, you know, while being a spiritual entrepreneur, I am a very logical person. I have that Capricorn moon, right? I want tangible proof. So I was very much like, I need to see a therapist. I need to see a psychologist. I need to see a psychiatrist. I need someone to diagnose something. And I did. I went through processes of like, am I schizophrenic? Do I have multiple personality disorder? Do I have all these things? And no one could diagnose anything. So at the end of that, I was like, so if I don't have a clinical diagnosis for any of these things, what the fuck am I meant to do with that? Like, am I just like, what? Okay. And it makes me think of like, you know, Sherlock Holmes. It's like, you know, you eliminate the improbable, whatever improbable is, you know, probably the truth. I really fucked that up, but you get the idea. So it's something that I was like, well, this is something that I just have to accept. And the more that I accepted it and embraced it, the more comfortable I became with it. But it's not to say that I still don't get asked that question of like, are you mentally ill? Are you insane? Like, do you have multiple personality disorder? And people question it. But at the same time, I think it's healthy to have that skepticism. And I'm never offended when someone comes to me and goes, are you really connecting? Like, is that really a thing? Is that legitimate? Like, you know, how do you know that information? Or how does Sari know that information? And I just go, well, I think your skepticism is really healthy, but, you know, I used to think the same thing. I used to question the same thing. But, you know, I'm not crazy. I've been checked. So, you know, you just kind of have to make do with it at that point. And I think it is an essence of like radical acceptance of like when you just start accepting things for the way they are. And my logical side was able to process it because I was like, okay, I haven't been diagnosed with anything. They can't diagnose anything. Whatever Sari is doing, whatever she is saying, she's not hurting anyone. She's never telling anyone any sort of information that would question their belief systems or, you know, make them feel horrible or question themselves or anything else. She's only ever giving information that is beneficial to the person. So I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, even if I'm fucking insane, I'm not hurting anyone. And I'm actually helping a lot of people. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
I love that you brought this up and went in this direction. It's a very valid, very, very real challenge that we do face in the industry. Both the external criticism and that internal criticism, and the external doubt and the internal doubt. And, you know, it's hard because especially in 2024, most of us that are entrepreneurs utilize the ginormous world of social media to grow and market our businesses. And the whole point, you know, of having a business is that as many people as possible purchase from it. But opening your reach instantly, and this is, you know, for any industry, instantly opens you up for all of the trolls. But our main gig that we deal with in the industry is absolutely that, either that doubt and criticism, and I agree with you, like, have all the criticism and skepticism in the world that you want. Like, it really is no sweat, no skin off my back or teeth or whatever the euphemism is. But my one thing that really, really, really gets me is we are branded scammers. Our industry is branded a big, giant, fat scam. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I myself, many of my own clients and colleagues have, I almost had my website provider totally pull out my payment platform from underneath my feet. And they were like, we found out you're doing astrology. This goes against our terms and conditions. We don't accept payments across this. And they suspended all of my transactions immediately. And I had to go and tell them that everything I do is for entertainment purposes only, and that I'm a podcaster. And ultimately, I think the only reason they looked the other way is because I have a school, an online school, and I've got a handful of subscribers under my belt that they were like, oh, well, I guess we'll let you continue on because it makes them money too, obviously, since I have business. But this is something I see across social media a lot as well. Are people going on and automatically saying like, you're, and I've had comments on my own videos like, you're a scammer. I can't believe that you would teach people that the planets control you and all of this, which I don't believe even for a second that the planets control us, and that's what the definition of freaking astrology is at all. But especially for past life regression, timeline exploration, for 2024, we're real hit and miss, the society right now, when it comes to subjects like these. It's either like, yes, I'm fascinated with this. I definitely believe this. And people don't even have to really be in the witchy industry to be into a lot of that stuff. Like, it's the demand for it is a lot bigger than you would think. And there is a very hard left side to that as well, of people that are like, this is absolute nonsense. That's not possible for X, Y, and Z, which always just, I'm like, have you looked into theory of relativity or anything? Like, quantum physics is absolutely fascinating. But when it comes to timeline expiration, past life regression, these services that you do, you talked about time traveling to the future, rewriting our timelines. What do some of those services look like with your clients, especially for those listening that are just absolutely like, I'm fascinated by these terms, but I don't even know what that looks like? Can you explain a little bit for us?
Yeah. I guess the way to really kind of make it understandable is that we're accessing different parts of your brain. It's like when you're driving a car and you kind of like get distracted, and then you're like, oh, how did I get here? Like your body was kind of like an autopilot, and your brain was kind of in a different brainwave than what it normally is. And that's kind of the area that I'm talking about, is like we're accessing different brainwaves that access different parts of your brain so that we can access subconscious memories. So things that you don't think you know, but deep down you know. It's like having instincts. It's like if someone threw a ball at you, even if you didn't know how to like play whatever sport it was, your instinct would be to put your hands up and protect your face and catch the ball. So it's really accessing just different parts of your brain through different brainwave techniques, through different hypnotic techniques, therapeutic techniques that really allow you to experience more of yourself. That's probably the easiest way to describe it from a basic understanding. Because, I mean, I totally get the, the trolls and everyone being like, what is this? There are people that come to me and be like, reincarnation, like, that's not even real. I'm like, cool. Like, even if it isn't, you've got something happening in your brain here that wants you to know something. So regardless of whether it's a past life, a different life, there's something here you need to know. And, I've never had anyone have an experience where they're like, oh, I wish I didn't know that. Like, afterwards, there's so much clarity, there's so much certainty, there's so much more security in yourself of like, I know the answers and I have this, I've got this. And for me, it doesn't really matter, like, if it's a witchy woo energy thing, or whether it's a brainwave hypnotic thing, or whether it's your mind playing make-believe. At the end of the day, if you have a profound and transformative experience from something, it doesn't need to make sense.
This is so connected and so parallel to dream work. And it goes right into the same argument or debate, I should say, around dreams. Do dreams actually, this is what they argue about, the variable they, do dreams have meaning, or are they just random projections from our subconscious helping us to process our environment? And I totally agree with you. And I would say in a heartbeat, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Either way, it matters as in whatever you resonate with, go with that, because that's what's going to help you have the most transformative experience. If you're forcing a belief that you truly don't hold, that's when any type of work or practice is simply not going to have results or even hold you back. But one thing is undeniable across time and space throughout human history: this quest for meaning, this sensing that there is meaning, that there is something greater than all of us. So I think what can help both anyone that's inexperienced in past life regression, timeline exploration, time travel, and folks that flat out feel skeptical or disagree with it. Let me ask you this then. Can you explain how this process works a little bit? Because most people in both of these categories I'm talking about think about time in a linear fashion, and this is usually the first problem, why they can't understand the concept itself.
Yeah. So, okay. The processing of time, if you think about time in general, it's basically something that we as a society have made up to keep track of what we do with our day and basically how we operate in a corporate sense. We have breakfast, lunch, and dinner to fit in with a corporate working schedule. If you take away like the pressure and the restrictions of what you think time is and just put yourself in the present moment of like, nothing exists but what's right here in front of me, I think that is the best way to go into an experience like this. Because at the end of the day, whatever you experience in your head, whether it's, a past life time period, or whether it's a future potential, or whether it's a completely different narrative, it's only what's happening in front of you at this point in time. So I guess when I take people through this experience, I get you into a theta brainwave state that is so relaxed that even if you wanted to make something up in your head, you wouldn't be able to do that. It's kind of like this is what is happening, and you just kind of accept it for what it is. When we do a lot of timeline exploration, people don't understand really how alert you are, because you think of hypnosis and you think of like, someone's going to make me cluck like a chicken and I'm going to have no recollection of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Mm-hmm.
not anything like this. When we access the theta brainwave state, it is the state that your brain goes into just as you're going to sleep and just as you're waking up. So you're still aware, but you're in a much more relaxed state. So whatever is happening, whatever is going through your mind, whatever sensory experience you're having, that is what you're accepting at that point in time. When you come out of that regression, you might have some different thoughts about it. You're like, did I make this up? Did I just imagine this? And that's okay. That is your conscious, your logic trying to kick in to help protect you, right? Because your logic and your ego, it's always considered a negative thing, but it comes from a loving place. It is trying to protect you, whether it's trying to protect you from disappointment or exclusion or being an outcast. It is trying to protect you. But when you yourself, as a conscious being, can come in and be like, you know what? Thanks so much for the protection, but I don't need it. I'm going to just accept this for what it is. Things change. You have a whole different experience around reality. And the more that you do this work, the more you kind of expand your perspective, and you're not just seeing, this tiny left-hand piece of the Mona Lisa going, what the fuck is everyone talking about? Well, I don't see a smile. And then you take a step back and you're like, aha, it's actually a much bigger painting than I thought. It's kind of like you're getting a different perspective. So what you want to do with that is what you will. That is everyone's prerogative. But it's kind of like the more you experience this, the more you can't deny the connection. It's like those women that, couldn't fall pregnant and then go through this release, and now they're pregnant and now they have children. And so many of them are like, I don't understand how this happened, but it did. So I'm accepting it for what it is.
I love this. So, in other words, whether you believe you are time traveling, experiencing, processing through an event in a past life, or you believe that your brain is showing you what you need to see, what you need to smell, hear, taste, all of it, right? In that moment, so that you can process through various wounds, blockages, etc. Because even from a biological scientific standpoint, it makes sense that we would be able to do this. Even if you put all of the spirituality aside for a second, so I'm talking to all of you skeptics out there. Even if you put all of that aside, this would work because everything in nature shows its ability to learn from its experiences and adapt accordingly to be more efficient moving forward. And every creature and every being has its own process and way of doing that. And this is a version of that. If the brain senses that it's being held back and it's stagnant or it's losing growth or whatever, or in danger in any way of any of those things, it will do something to rectify the situation, course correct, and improve for more efficiency moving forward. And so this is why I love talking to folks who do this type of work, because the biggest fear I think people have is, because we all deep down know that we've done things in past lives that we're going to regret or feel bad about or guilty or whatever it is. Oh, I don't want to know. I don't, or scary things that we saw or we experienced as well. I don't want to downplay that at all. But every single person I talk to that either has this work done, like me, or does this work for their profession, like you, every single one of us will tell you that you see exactly what you're supposed to see. You're never, ever, ever given something out of left field that fucks you up more than you're already fucked up.
No, never.
I love that you said everyone leaves with more clarity. I think that that was such a huge, huge piece. So I want to ask you, especially because we've talked so much about the importance of self-care, which not only from an individual to connect to their spirituality, but also for you specifically and personally, for anyone that is an entrepreneur, especially a spiritual entrepreneur, and as you mentioned, a mom, a parent entrepreneur. Tell us, what has your self-care journey transformation looked like personally when it comes to being a mother and an entrepreneur who, in your line of work, you show up and have to do a lot for other people, which is what we also have to do as caregivers.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything that I preach about self-care is all stuff that I've had to experience and learn myself. And that's, I think, the difference between, I mean, in my honest opinion, that's how you can tell the difference between someone who actually knows what the fuck they're doing and someone who's like read a book and is like, or taking a coaching course and they're like, I'm going to coach you how to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the lived experience. Like, I have had to juggle some intense shit in my life, and I would not be capable of doing what I do if I did not take care of myself. I am luckily so blessed and so supported by my husband. He is just amazing. Like, when I'm late with a client, like, I come home, dinner's already done and kids are ready for bed and all the things are already organized. But in saying that, my kids are also older. So my kids are 14, 13, and 9. And, you know, they walk home from school. They let themselves in. They, you know, they're very self-sufficient. My husband's home by like 2, 3 o'clock anyway. So it's kind of like I got to a point where my kids were able to do what they needed to do. And I'm just a supporting role. I'm no longer, you know, the be all and end all. And as a mom, sometimes that's hard to accept, that you are not constantly needed anymore. But I also want my kids to be strong and independent and trust themselves. So the way that I treat my kids is the same way that I treat my clients. And that is with a sense of like empowerment. It's not, I don't fix this for you. I'm going to teach you and you're going to do this and we're going to do this together. And you're going to be able to do this on your own. And that's something that I think has really helped me establish myself in my career, because I am someone who puts people first, not ahead of myself, but I help them see the strength within themselves. And that's what I do with my kids. You know, I help them discover what they want, what they need, and I support them when it's needed. And the second they need something, I'm there. But at the same time, they have the intuitive ability, the self-trust, the self-care within themselves to trust their own decisions. And that's something that, you know, does come with age, but at the same time, it also comes with allowing your kids to experience life and not putting them in a bubble and not being like, oh my God, don't touch that. Oh my God, don't fall. Oh my God, this. It's, you know, and I know this can seem really like balancing the helicopter mom and the absent parent, but, you know, it's one of those things that you've got to find the balance. And I feel like I have done that really well. And my kids are very supported. And yeah, like I don't really worry or stress about what they're going to do because I trust them and they've given me no reason not to. And yeah, I feel like in terms of self-care for me, the less that I am helicoptering, there we go, as a parent, you know, the more time I can actually take for myself. And I know that the time that I take for myself helps me become a better parent and a better provider and a better carer and, you know, also a better soul therapist as well. So I think there's a big part of me that's like, if you don't prioritize your own energy and your own self-care, then everything you do for everyone else means shit. Like, you have to put yourself first. And if you don't, then everything you do it's not going to be to the best of your ability. It's going to be half-assed. And I'm someone that's like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it fucking well.
I love that. It's, you know, sometimes we can get really, really, really stuck in these cycles where we fully believe that the more we try and fill everyone else's cup, that somehow ours will get filled as a byproduct from it. Especially as women, so many of us have that experience, but really anybody ever experiencing or in caregiver type positions of any kind, you naturally go through these cycles where you do, like, you really think that, because it's hard not to. If I, you know, great example is like the day that is spinning out of control, but you can't really tell that it's spinning out of control until right before it wobbles and it does spin out of control, where it's just one of those busy ass days, balancing all of the multiple areas of your life plus the people in your household's life as well, trying to juggle all the things. If I do X, Y, and Z for my kid, it will benefit me later because then I won't have to do it. If I do X, Y, and Z over here and prepare for it now, I won't have to do this. So it's easy to get in this mindset like, oh, when I do those things, I make it easier on myself. And ultimately, and this is something I'm wildly guilty of because Virgo rules my second house and I can just be a robot around here and think I can fix my whole life by cleaning it up physically. And reorganizing it. I have to constantly check in with myself and go, when is doing all of those things physically taking away from you actually caring for yourself, though? Because yes, if you can pack her lunch now so you don't have to do it first thing in the morning, yeah, it's going to be helpful for me in the morning. And should I take the time to brush my teeth and take my shower for the night, kind of a thing, and like weighing those, it really is a balance, like you're talking about, between being there for your kids, your partner, your household, your business, knowing that by being there for all of those things, of course it benefits you, of course. And if it's just way too easy to get stuck in a mode where that's all you're doing. And you turn around and look over here and you're like, oh my God, I haven't done a single thing for myself. No wonder I've been angry or sad or felt lost or foggy or whatever it is. I'm glad that you brought up self-care so much today, because I think that is one of the first places people need to start. And because self-care has become such a buzz term, it's also started getting swept under the rug again. And a lot of, have you seen this as well in your clients, where because we do live in a time where self-care is straight up inaccessible for a lot of people, or totally unrealistic for a lot of people. Um, what are what are some of those like practical tips or reminders that you give someone that's feeling that kind of hopelessness? You know what I mean? That like is having the difficulty even doing those most basic things for themselves, when we both know that's probably the best place to start still.
Yeah. This is something that I see a lot with energy coaching clients, because so many people, you know, they want to skip ahead. They want all the spiritual, they want all the gifts, all the abilities, all the spirit guides, all the teams, all the things. But, you know, you go and tell them to like go spend some time loving their body in the shower, and they're like, what the fuck's that gonna do? Like, how does that help me? And it's kind of one of those things. It's like we tend to just overcomplicate things as humans. We tend to want things to mean more, to be more than what they are. And self-care doesn't have to be the expensive facial or the massage or whatever the case is. It can literally be just sitting in your car for 5 minutes, taking some deep breaths before you get out, and continue your day. Like, it's not something that has to be a grind. It's not something that has to be drastic. And, you know, those things are great to do, but also, like, you know, the things like the facial and, you know, that's all great, but it's not necessary. It's something that a lot of people tend to do once they've hit burnout. Once they've hit that point of like, fuck, I'm so done. And it's just like, you shouldn't have to get to that point. And that's what things like taking a minute in your car before you get out, taking some deep breaths, is going to help you avoid. That is what, you know, making the time to brush your teeth and have a shower is going to avoid. And, you know, in terms of like making the kids' lunches, I am a great delegator. I am like, come on, let's do this together so that you can do it yourself from now on. And I understand young kids, toddlers and like little kids in elementary school and things like that might not be, you know, able or capable yet, but still getting them to help you sets the tone for them being able to do it themselves when they are able to do it. And that's something that, you know, builds that trust and builds that independence so that you don't have to worry about it. And it's something you can take off your mental load. And that is a huge thing in self-care that I believe in, is just not adding things to your mental load. Don't add things that are not important to today, that are not necessary in this moment, and worry about the rest later. It's something that's like, you know, as even I said to you the other day, I was like, a quote that I live by is control the controllable and surrender the rest. If I can't control this or fix this right now, it does not matter. I'm going to surrender it. I'm going to let it go, and it's going to be whatever it's going to be. So I think that's a huge thing in just avoiding getting to that place of severe burnout.
Absolutely. Because I'm so glad that you said this, because this is what I believe as well, is that ultimately self-care is a mindset shift and shifting and transformation. And self-care itself is just like shadow work to me, where it is an evolutionary, cyclical process that we naturally do over time, and it ebbs and flows in its own natural way. You're never going to be perfect at it. And even when you get to those places of deep neglect, something always kicks your butt into doing something for you. You know, those those ruts that we get in, they serve their own purpose on the journey, no matter how much that might not make sense in that moment. When you zoom out the whole timeline, which is what one of the amazing byproducts of doing work like timeline exploration does, is it puts things into a totally different perspective, and you're able to see the purpose or the meaning behind getting stuck in the ruts, in the stress. Those are our growth moments. They kick us into moments of and chapters of transformation. And ultimately, whether it's self-care, whether it's shadow work, whether it's spell work, manifestation, all of ritual, all of these things, at the end of it all, are mindset work, and everything else is just bonus additions. Like if you have crystals and, like you said, the facials, great. If you can do the facial and you like the facial and the facial adds to your self-care mindset, fuck yeah, do the facial. But we've gotten and it makes sense. We're such a consumed society. It makes so much sense why we immediately go to the product, the service. I have to spend, I have to do this, when ultimately it's a mindset shift. So when you very first, for example, started doing the shower ritual and thanking your body, and you felt so embarrassed, like you talked about, I knew you were speaking from experience when you told people you are going to feel like you are on a stage in front of 10,000 people. Let me ask you, did you really believe when you felt that way that it was going to work? Or did you just hope that it was going to work and you did it anyways? And it went from there?
I think it's honestly a bit of both, because when I started doing it, I was really lost. I was really just like, give me anything. I will try anything. And at the same time, I have this kind of like this mindset or this mentality that, like, things just work out for me. Like, I don't know how, it just does. If I do the thing, like if I set that intention, like, I don't know. Like, I just have this really like strange mentality or like belief system where I'm just like, yeah, if I do this and I think this, like, that's what it is. I'm not going to question it. And I'm one of those people that, like, when people come to me and, they're like, but what if it doesn't work? And I'm like, okay, but that's assuming it doesn't. What if you assumed it did? What if you believed it worked until it didn't? Believe that it's going to do the thing until it doesn't. Believe in the best case scenario until it's the worst. Cross the bridge when you get there. And people go, oh, okay. And I don't know, it just seems to give people a different perspective. And then they go, okay, well, yeah, until I have a reason not to believe this or not to trust this, yeah, okay, I'll trust it. And then shit just works out. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there. But, I was really lost, and I was really just like, give me anything. I'll try anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, yeah, fuck, this feels embarrassing. But I know that every time I feel embarrassed or I feel like I doubt myself, instead of being like, damn, like I'm sabotaging myself again, I go, I'm trying to sabotage myself. This means I'm going to do something good. Like, this means something good's going to happen. So a lot of the time, I don't necessarily like approach that embarrassment or that doubt with like a, oh no, but I approach it with like a, this means something good. This means I'm going to do something good. All right, let's just push through. Let's do it. Let's come on. And also, like, you know, if you're not living your life for yourself, like, what are you doing? So at the end of the day, just yeah, give it a go. What's the worst that could happen?
I think that is such a helpful perspective to offer. Like wildly, wildly helpful, because what it instantly connected to for me is what I believe about the placebo effect. And I've been talking about this for a couple of years, and people are, it's so funny because among logical, scientific, if you will, circles, people are, oh, it's just the placebo effect. It was just the placebo effect all along. It's even become a phrase we use to say something is a fake or a phony, right? Because it was just a placebo effect. It took me a few years into my like deep spiritual journey, and it just slammed into me like a train one day. And I was like, that's amazing. The placebo effect is this amazing, scientifically proven fact that that our brain can 100% manipulate physical reality to our belief. 100%. It's a scientific proven. Go tell me that that's not what the placebo effect is, because that's literally what it is. And it's just so funny because it's so human in it's so, and I mean that in a wonderfully endearing way. It makes so much sense that we are here to learn and step back into and reconnect to our soul knowledge and into our power, because of course we would take something like that wildly for granted, to the point where we use that to be like, oh, we were just giving them a sugar pill and they healed themselves. It was just the placebo effect. And I'm like, the human body could heal itself of something because you simply told somebody that they were taking something that they weren't. And it's amazing that we haven't done more with that, like experimented more with that. It kind of says a lot to me about us as a collective. Again, I think we're really meant to take that for granted because it's more effective to be the one who reclaims or steps back into your soul knowledge than being born with it. Because a lot of people are like, why aren't we just born with our memories of our past lives? Why aren't we just born with all of this knowledge? And I always say, because it's so much more effective when you experience it firsthand, experiential learning, and it goes right into everything you explained about being a parent. And this is one of the beauties of the parent-child archetype. And honestly, as the mother of a 5, almost 6-year-old, I took in your words like major sacred medicine tonight while we were recording, because I honestly hate when Zoom does the stupid thumbs up like that. I really need that reminder. I'm in that season of mothering and in that season of parenting where she is in some of her first, like, biggest independence stepping into. Like, this is some of she's 5, almost 6. Like I said, this is, for anyone that doesn't know kids very much, like, this is really some of the first passing a full baton on certain things. And you're dancing constantly, just like you said, between, it was nail on the head, constantly dancing between helicopter parent and total chill, bro, you can do whatever you want, kind of, because that's doesn't even fully exist either. But it's exhausting because you're constantly wondering if you're doing the right thing. and if you're fucking them up, and so much about the work that you do is this is why it's so helpful to zoom out of these moments. Remember that we're all souls with a higher self. We all chose our timeline for a reason. It's very much for a reason that we'll never see anything we can't handle in our hypnosis or our timeline exploration, like you said, because ultimately we're all part of source, right? Mm-hmm. And I firmly believe that we all have this ability to mirror each other and learn from each other what we're supposed to at any given time, should we choose to be aware of that and lean into that. And I agree with you. At the end of the day, anyone coming to someone like you offering these just amazing services, not only are you, of course, not hurting anyone, ultimately, at the end of it, these are people stepping into a whole new layer of self-awareness, asking for that to be even more deepened, even greater awareness for themselves. And so this is why my last question for you, I think this is a beautiful topic to end the show on. What would you tell people is the difference between your relax and release ritual, for example, and service versus regretting what we've done in the past and wishing we could go back and do it differently? What's the difference between those two? Because the mindset there is massive.
I think the biggest difference, sorry, something's coming up for me that's like throwing me back to something else that you said. I'll come back to this.
Okay.
Something I think is really important for parents, right, is no matter how good of a parent you are or how bad of a parent you are, we all end up with trauma to some level, right? So I think the biggest thing to remember for parents that have kids that are stepping in to understanding independence and trying new things and exploring new things is you're not always going to get it right. And that's okay. The idea of being a parent is to help them put their trauma in a backpack instead of a U-Haul out the back. So sometimes if you just have to survive the day, and surviving the day is like, I'll just do it because it's quicker, that's fine. That's okay. It doesn't discount the progress you've made. It doesn't make them forget how to do it. It's just taking that time to realize we can try again tomorrow, and that's okay. It's okay for the kids to make mistakes. They're learning. But also, this is our first time in this life being parents. So we're still learning too. So we don't, you can't expect us to have it all figured out. And it goes the same for our parents, and I think you come into that awareness when you become a parent yourself of like, hey, this was their first time too. Like, they didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. They did the best they could. I'm doing the best I can. So be it. But at the end of the day, like, I've had clients that have had amazing childhoods and parents that, pay for everything and do everything for them. And the children have resentment because they feel like their parents don't believe in them, don't trust them to do it on their own. And then I've had clients that have parents that have been completely absent, not given a shit. And it's like, I had to learn to do it myself and no one supported me. So at the end of the day, no matter which end of the scale you're on, we all have trauma. So just put in your mind that as long as you're working towards condensing your trauma or your child's trauma into a backpack instead of a U-Haul, you're doing a pretty good job.
I
Now,
love that.
in,
Such a powerful reminder for all of us.
in terms of the difference between the regretting the past and the relax and release ritual, I think in regretting the past, you're holding on to the emotions of it because that's all you're thinking about. You're feeling shame, you're feeling anger, you're feeling guilt, you're feeling regret. And it's really going to impact the way that you're living your life moving forward. In the relax and release, we can go back. We can rewrite the story, have a different outcome, process these emotions in a healthy and safe environment so that you're not holding on to them anymore. We can align your energy through Reiki, through that timeline, through this timeline, through any other timeline you want, and then reprogram your belief systems into thinking that you have to hold guilt over this, when no, you did the best you could with the resources you had at that time. If you didn't know better, you didn't know better. That's okay. We make mistakes. Time to move on. You know better now, and you're going to do better now. So it's kind of like programming that belief system into you to forgive yourself and forgive whatever happened in that situation. And I think when you come out of that and you look back on that experience, you don't look back at it and regret it. Your whole perspective has changed to appreciate that situation because you've learned so much from it. And I think that's the biggest difference to each of those.
Forgiveness. So powerful. Such a major key to so much of our healing individually and as a collective, and probably one of the toughest energy channels for us to tap into is forgiveness. Totally. There are some people, especially depending on the trauma, there are some people that it feels physically impossible to forgive. And I would say, even on top of that, forgiving yourself might be the hardest thing, even no matter what someone has done to you or wronged you. I think that forgiving self might be the hardest job for any of us. And therefore, it is the most powerful. And I wouldn't have even thought of it, but it is absolutely the difference between those two things. Absolutely. Because in regretting the past, wishing so badly you could go back and just do it all over again, and doing an intentional revisitation of some kind of event, or whether it's because you can do that in different types of therapy, obviously. You know, it doesn't have to just be in past life regression timeline work. You know, this is EMDR in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it is so different when you are doing some sort of reviewing or revisiting and processing with the intention of release. And forgiveness is absolutely the main player there. Definitely. Because when you don't forgive, you're clutching, you're holding on, your claws are sunk into it. And that's where the release happens, is the forgiveness. And I think that is such a beautiful, and it's powerful because it's so simple. And I know that there are so many people listening to this right now that are like, oh my fucking God. Because it's so true. Go read through like a quarter of your journal and you're going to realize, oh, it's forgiveness I need to tap into. You, again, usually for yourself more than anybody else, even the people you immediately think of that have wronged you the most. Have you found that in your work, by the way, that I'm sure that you have this big variety where some people have to really do big release and forgiveness for other people, but also for self. Do you find that that tends to be one of the most common is stuff having to do with like decisions or behaviors or things that that person themselves has done?
Yeah, every single time. Yeah. It's something that a lot of people don't expect because they hold so much resentment or pain over what someone else has done to them. But when they actually revisit the situation or, process the emotions, they realize they had more control than what they expected. And it was their reaction or their lack of reaction or whatever the situation is that they actually hold the most anger for. And when they come into that awareness, it kind of, it just changes things for them because they don't hold on to so much of that victim mentality. It's like, okay, I'm not defined by this anymore. And they can go through that process of forgiving themselves. And when you do forgive yourself and realize that, this is your first time doing this, or you don't have the experience or the knowledge or the wisdom at that point in time that you do now. And whatever the situation is, like, you've learned from it. And nothing is a mistake. It's just a lesson. And I think that's one of the biggest realizations that I've had through this work as well.
You were supposed to fuck up. It's the hardest thing for us to swallow. It really is. It really, especially if you got Leo and Virgo placements. And Capricorn, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess it's flipping the switch on, like, it's not failure. It's just
Right.
progress.
Yes.
So
it's why perfectionism can hold us back so big time, because you have to eventually embrace that you're supposed to fuck up. And it's so impossible to do that, it feels like, as a perfectionist so much of the time.
Yeah, perfectionism is really hard because a lot of the time it's actually hiding how we value ourselves. And if we are a perfectionist, it's usually because we put such high value on what we do and not who we are. And that's something too that has shifted in my perspective when I just decided that, perfectionism is just me not valuing myself and expecting other people to value what I do. If I don't value what I do, no one else is going to value it. So perfectionism doesn't exist. It's just a lack of self-worth.
That's so important and so incredibly true. So, Elle, to kind of cap us off here, what would be, there's so many people listening to this show that are embarking on or feel incredibly called to begin embarking on the soul healing journey. What message of insight or advice would you like to offer them to kind of close out our conversation today?
Okay. I think if you're starting or even just rekindling where you've left it for a while, I think the biggest advice that I can give you is a lot of what we've talked about today. In all honesty, it is connecting to yourself, and not just what you look like, but what you do for yourself. Connecting with that inner peace, that inner child that just wants to be valued, that just wants that self-worth, that wants to know that they're important. And when you give yourself the time, the self-care, the space to really connect, things things will change and things will evolve for you in a way that I don't think you will expect. And it's not necessarily something we have to overcomplicate. It is really simple. And just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not important.
Just like you said, I mean, you really can sum up so beautifully and seamlessly what we've talked about with what you said. Control the controllable and surrender the rest.
Totally.
Solid fucking advice. So, Elle, please let us all know how we can find you, how we can follow you, how we can support you, and how we can work with you.
Yeah. I spend a lot of my time on Instagram, so you can find me at Elle.Embers. I do have my website as well, elleembers.com, and my podcast, Cosmic Curiosities. So if you would like to connect, I try to build a community. So everyone that follows me on Instagram, I do try to reach out to and connect with you. So I know who's, watching me and who I'm talking to, and building that, connection that's not just social media crap. So I do try to do that. And that's me.
Yay. Oh, thank you. First, everything will be in the show notes below, of course, to connect with and support Elle, and to, as I always say, continue the conversation beyond the episode. But Elle, just thank you so much for your time and for your words and for your energy today, because I really, really think this is such a valuable episode. So many people are here in my universe doing exactly the work or hoping to do the work that you do. And so this is extremely inspiring, so informative, and so helpful. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It was so amazing to connect like this, and I'm so grateful. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Everybody, please don't hesitate to reach out, of course. If you enjoyed the episode, let us know. Give us a shout out. Tag both Elle and I. We'll give you a shout out in our Instagram stories, as always. Thank you, neighbor, for your time today. And every day is always, always an honor and a privilege to be with all of you. I hope that you have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your weekend. Make sure you stay safe. Stay having fun out there, no matter how hard it gets some days. And of course, stay magical, my friends. Or just looking for That Witch outside of That Witch podcast, make sure you're following me on social media, over on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and Twitter. You can find links to all of those in the show notes below. And make sure you're subscribed to my email newsletter by going to thatwitchnextdoor.com and submitting your